Hello, everybody, and welcome, not recognize, welcome to SBI Reigniting Small Business Podcast. I'm Patrick Lee with SBI, the Spark Business Institute.
And I'm Laura Richards, also with SBI. And today we have with us Ann Alsina of Covington Alsina, who's going to talk to us a little bit about her business and their different approach to financial planning. Ann?
Hi, thanks for having me. Covington Alsina is a little bit different. We think that our financial lives are incredibly complex. There are so many different things we need to know about and learn about. And the financial industry as a whole has not been really helpful helping people figure that out, particularly when it comes to women. All right, so we need to talk about insurance, mortgages, retirement, education, everything that goes into it. And people need advice and help on all of that. And that's why at Covington Alsina, we use our purse power approach, which is an empathetic, jargon-free approach to helping women make wiser financial decisions.
So just a little disclaimer here. Ann and I go back sort of a long way here. We've worked together. We actually share an office together. And I believe, Laura, that you also work directly with Ann as one of those women who are getting jargon-free advice, I believe. So we all know each other very well here. But the reason that we asked Ann to come on was not really to discuss all of her sound and good advice, but was more to discuss the process that she went through to reach that brand that you just heard her talk about. She actually worked with what we call a brand voice. And that process is a process by which a person doesn't just come up with a marketing strategy, but they come up with a way to authenticate what they're actually about and broadcast that out to potential clients so that people are already opting in. You do what you do, they're already buying in. And Ann is one of the more interesting case studies around brand voice because initially, and she told me she was going to make sure that she said this, she initially hated her brand voice.
Despised
it. And so it's been an interesting process. So I actually love to start, Ann, with you just sort of saying, like, when you first heard about brand voice and sort of we were talking about, and then just talk a little bit about the beginning. Don't cut to the climax yet, but let's hear what this looked like for you and how it felt.
Okay. So the initial process, and I've been working with Patrick to try and grow my practice. And one of the problems, of course, is that there's a million people out there who do what I do. And I could say, well, no, but I'm better, I'm good. But how do you tell people that? And how are you actually better or good at what you do? And so Patrick said, there's a focus and there's people who are going to be attracted to that and want to work with you because of your story. And so we did the brand voice thing, all these interviews where they're asking me, I felt like I was on the psychologist's couch about my childhood and my upbringing. Thinking, what does that have to do with anything? And then they came back a couple weeks later with this whole brand voice initiative. And it said, your focus is women. And I said, I hate women. And Patrick said, well, no, you like Laura. And I was like, yeah, but look at what Laura's done. She owns a couple restaurants and she's a kick-ass marketing person. And, she's raising kids and did all on her own. She's amazing. And they said, well, yeah, but you like so-and-so. And I'm like, yeah, but look what she's done. She's accomplished all this. And they said, that's your niche. It's strong, successful women because your story will resonate with them and their story will resonate with you.
And when you heard that didn't convince you of anything, but you had a few epiphanies as you went along with sort of a concept that, like, as you started continuing to do what you were doing, you started realizing that, wait a minute, that I'm already doing that. I just hadn't recognized it. I'm already, so exactly. How did that feel? What was that?
So it was like a series of cumulative aha moments, right? It wasn't one big, wow, that was it. Like when I got the brand voice, I didn't instinctively recognize that was it. It was a series of cumulative ahas. So you had pointed out, I think, that I've been doing Women, Wine, and Wisdom. It's an educational series for women. We've been doing that over 12 years, well before we did brand voice. You pointed out that we work with a large number of women who, because of that, are coming in, and sometimes they bring their husbands, sometimes it's them, but it's the female that then usually a successful business owner who's attracted to it and comes to me because of that and because of the work we're already doing.
So Ann, explain to people who are listening and viewing this exactly what Women, Wine, and Wisdom is, because that really was something that distinguished you in your practice for me when I made my decision about my financial planning services. And it also resonates in your own jargon-free approach.
Right. So many years ago, I would often sit sometimes with just a woman or with a couple, and we're going through things. And women, I find, tend to beat themselves up more. Oh, I'm just stupid. I don't know anything about money. Does everybody know that? Everybody knows that, don't they? I'm just stupid. I'm not really good with money. And, I always say, you don't want me putting an IV line in somebody, but that doesn't make me stupid. We all know what we know and we're good at what we're good at. And that's what makes the world and the economy work. Right. So I wanted to be able to share that knowledge that I have. I don't always have time in one-to-one meetings to share that knowledge and expertise. And so we started these Women, Wine, and Wisdom events, very casual. We have some food, we have wine. And it's a group of women, and we purposely keep it women only, simply because the women we found when we've introduced men into the group, the women are less likely to speak up and ask questions. And so sometimes it's me, sometimes we have a speaker, but it's always kind of a roundtable discussion where we have someone come in and I will freely interrupt them and say, wait, nobody understands that. Can you explain that in plain English, please?
And I was just going to say, you've done everything from how to change your own oil to, wills and estates and auctioning, how you get your stuff appraised if you're having an estate sale. So the Women, Wine, and Wisdom events really cover a very broad range of things. So, from an end user perspective, you're creating value and you're bringing other people into the fold so that they can give their instruction by being approachable and being authentic, being understandable, and educating. And so those things, I guess, are a reflection of your authenticity. So explain how you ultimately came to accept your brand voice and why it began to feel authentic.
So again, when I had my first initial reaction that, I really don't like that concept. And Patrick had pointed out to me, no, because you like so-and-so and you like so-and-so and their stories resonated. And so the further I went along, the more I saw that, hey, wait a minute. I've had a career in male dominated industries. I spent 17 years in the automotive industry. I came into financial services where about 20% of CFP, certified financial planner charter holders, are women. So it's definitely not a market where I'm in male dominated industries. So, and I did that while raising 2 kids and running a household. My husband was active duty and he's still a reservist. So he deploys for a year at a time and it's just me. So I'm not a single mom, but oftentimes I'm running the whole household as well as taking care of 2 kids and running a business on my own. And so that kind of coalesced. And I went, okay, wait a minute. That's me too. Wow, that is me. And so we've done a lot of things. I know, Patrick, if you want me to talk about kind of how we've embraced it in the office and with our branding.
Yeah, absolutely. Because let me just say this as an intro to that. So you struggled to accept it, but you didn't say yay or nay. You just kind of looked at me and said, I don't like this. And then you went away. And I said, okay, well, let it sit. Let's see what happens. Well, from that, it was a long germination. But you're actually somebody who has embraced this almost zealot-like. You've embraced it far. I mean, I have many folks who've used this tool and done well with it, but you seem to have been somebody who just once it hit you, and it was everywhere and everything you did and how you thought. And so talk about the tactics that you started implementing, but also talk about how it grew on you and became like natural. It wasn't you were expecting anything. You were just doing it.
Right. Part of it, again, was that realization that this was already who I was. And, I think some of the initial thoughts where I would put up pictures of women rock climbing, which, don't get me wrong, that's my family, but it seems just kind of stereotyped or flat, right? And instead, one of the things we did was we named each of our conference rooms after different women who've done some really cool, amazing things. One of them is Grace Hopper, and she's the reason we code computers in words and not ones and zeros. And so we've organized the whole conference room, the dishes, the artwork, everything around Grace Hopper. And so we've done that for each of the different conference rooms. Again, showcasing those strong, successful women, but not in a way that's pandering to women, right? It's not pink. It's more power than that. So we've done that in terms of our conference room. The other art outside of the conference rooms is art from my kids' school and that my kids have done. And the whole intention there, obviously I'm a proud mom, but it's also showing that I am a mom and that I've raised these two wonderful women while I've been growing this business. And that those are, again, the women that are attracted. And it's been really cool to watch other really strong, successful women want in on that. And that, I think, has been a large part of why I've embraced it so much and it's become so natural, is because these other women are just feeding on it and going, wow, this is really cool. Oh, wait a minute, you talk to me like I'm a human being. Oh, you're not talking down to me. And so that's been really exciting to watch and have that grow. And so it really has become our brand. That's who we are, right? It's not that we don't work with men. I actually have a number of men who've come to us and said, really like this approach. Right. But the voice we're putting out there is really authentic to us. And I think that's why it works, because it is us. It is who we are. Now we're just going about it systematically.
And
so one quick question for you on that. When you found that you did put your inside outside, right? So your external people could see what was always going on there. You had an uptick in momentum in your business. Can you talk about what that looked like?
It's been, we've always grown predominantly by referrals. But what we've seen is that other successful women professionals are referring their clients and referring friends. And we've always seen women will bring other women to events, especially like Women, Wine, and Wisdom. But now we're seeing it on a more systematic basis. It's more like women are saying, oh, no, you need to go work with Ann. And we've seen more of that building. And again, it's almost like, and I think a lot of people who think about going for a niche or a niche, however you want to pronounce it, I always feel like George W. Bush there. Right? You're afraid because, especially as a small business owner, right? You want to take every bit of business that comes your way. And when you say, no, this is who I am, you're afraid, oh my gosh, I'm leaving all this other business off there, right? And I'm going to lose business. But in reality, people are attracted to it and it grows of its own accord because you develop a reputation for that. And if someone wants to be a part of that, they're going to reach out to you and they're going to find you versus me trying to go out and be all things to all people.
Well put.
So what's your tagline again?
At the intersection of women and wealth.
Okay. So there's an interesting story that happened that I want you to tell. One of the things that we always talk about when we give a client a brand voice is that we tell them there's a point in time where we want them to pivot. We want them, everything switches and it's all about that language, how you answer the phone, what's on your walls, how you dress. Everything becomes it in that moment so that it is unmistakable by anybody looking. And one of the things we like to do is we like to have some sort of announcement of this. So we had actually gotten you a two-page, full-page spread in a local publication to Annapolis that goes out to a whole bunch of people in the mail, but also ends up sitting in hotel rooms, because there's restaurants and all that sort of thing in them. And so you had said, oh, this is really cool. I don't know exactly what's going to come of this two-page thing, but I'm glad I have it. And then something came of it. So tell that story.
So I actually got a phone call from a woman who was vacationing in Annapolis. She lives South County, so not very far away. But she came up to Annapolis with a girlfriend to have a weekend, and her friend was taking a very long time getting ready, and she was bored. And so she started looking through that, and she read it, and she said, that's what I need. And she picked up the phone and called and came in and became a client. And she's still an absolutely great client. We just did some more planning work for her around the whole pandemic and what she wants to do with her life. Introduced her to another client who's a coach and is starting a coaching business. So it's really cool. That just came out of her looking through that in the hotel.
But that's intriguing because she said, that's what I need. What was that? When she told you that, what did she get? She
wanted the approach, right? That we're holistic, right? We truly are. We look at everything that's going to impact a client financially. And she liked the empathetic nature of it that, we tell people all the time. People say, oh, I should have. Oh, I didn't do this. Oh, and I say, you know what? You make the best decision you can at the time with the information you had, right? You did the best you could. And now we're moving on. We can't go back and change it. So let's stop kicking ourselves for it. You did the best you could. That's all anybody can ever ask of you, right? So we move on from those things where I have, in my 17 years as an advisor, working with other advisors and knowing people, you're at conferences and you stand around and talk, and they'll say, oh, can you believe what this stupid client did? And I'm just, they don't need the judgment, right? So I think she was very attracted to that idea that she was going to come into a space where we weren't going to criticize her for things she'd done. We were just going to help her do the best she can from where she is forward.
Okay.
I liked what you said about, her seeing it and immediately opting in, because that's exactly what we say about brand voice, right? When you do it right, your authenticity is going to draw the very people that should be using your services. Mm-hmm. And you go about putting yourself out into the world in your unique way that you always have. But because you're wearing it on the outside, there are a lot more eyeballs on it. And the people that need to hear it, that need to find you, can find you that much easier.
Well, I've also found that the clients who see that approach, who see our brand voice materials and opt in because of it, they're a better fit for our practice. They're a better fit for our business, right? They've already decided this is how they want to work. It's not me trying to sell them something. It's them coming to us to buy something, right? And that fits us a whole lot better than anything I can ever try and cobble together for someone when it's really not that right of a fit.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we always say about brand voice as a tool is that, as you had said it earlier, in financial planning, there's a million folks out there who are doing the same thing, and you can say, well, but I care about my clients. They're not going to say, well, I don't care about mine. They go, well, we care about ours too. Well, I make sure it's the best investment. Well, we do too. I mean, everybody says the same thing. So the real test is, can you say something authentically unique? And then anybody who's interested in that authentic uniqueness comes in because they're already warmed up. And if it's truly authentic, that means you actually do it. So it's already, we talked about, Ann, in the beginning, how what you were saying when you were out in a group did not mirror how you treated your clients once they got back into the conference room. And it was like, okay, Ann, but how do they know what to expect in the conference room so that they'll be happy once they get in the conference room, or know that's what they're going to get, right? And it was this sort of back and forth around that. And I do think that's sort of one of the big things. If it says, the brand voice says exactly what the client should expect, and that's what you deliver, there's no more proofs necessary at that point.
Right.
So talk about purse power, because that ended up being sort of the design to your brand voice, the actual what people could see, and it ended up becoming its own, I don't know, nomenclature about how you went about things.
Right. So I was actually sponsoring at a women's business event, and I had a few minutes to speak, and that's when I talked about that purse power approach. Right. That's when I first used that tagline, and I talked about it in terms of women learning to flex their purse power. Because women actually have a tremendous amount of control over the money in the world. Women are starting to out-earn men in some areas in terms of controlling wealth, right? 90% of all women are going to be solely responsible for their finances at some point in their lives, right? So, and women have purse power, right? Even in a married couple, women often have a lot of say and control over the money in the family, right? So we coined that term purse power and used it, and it fits us in a number of ways, right? We're helping women flex their purse power, what we call our purse power approach, in terms of empathetic, jargon-free approach to helping women make wiser financial decisions. We have a purse power package that we donate out to nonprofits. So any nonprofit that's got a silent auction, we import custom bags from Italy with our submark on them, and give everyone and they get a handbag with a book and a gift certificate for financial planning, and give those out because, again, we want to be part of the community. It's part of who we are as a brand. And so they auction off the purse power package coming from Covington Alsina. And we have our Purse Power coaching program, which is for women who need a little bit more handholding, right? We're not just going to do a financial plan, invest your money, and talk to you next year. It's an ongoing monthly call or monthly meeting to go over everything and keep you on track and get you accountable until you get things going. And that's our Purse Power coaching program. So we've used it in a lot of different ways. It's kind of part of who we are. And our logo, actually, it's our firm name, but it has a purse hanging off of it. And then we have our submark with the handbag, the same handbag. And then we just did some really cool stuff. So we had custom wallpaper with a pattern that's based on the purse. From a distance, it looks kind of like waves. But when you get up close, you're like, oh, those are handbags. And we just ordered fabric. And so we are getting some masks made with our purse logo on them.
Put your money where your mouth is.
I got to remember that.
Something like that.
So you've also begun to sponsor certain events, and that has stayed within this focus too. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So one of our biggest sponsorships, again, we're a big part of the community. It's one of the reasons I like owning a local firm as opposed to being an employee of a bigger firm when it comes to financial advice. So we are a sponsor of Historic Annapolis, a great organization here locally in Annapolis, but specifically, in addition to be a general sponsor, we are the VIP sponsor of the Peka Girlfriends Party, which is probably one of the preeminent women's events in Annapolis. Several hundred women come to the Peka House Gardens for an evening of food and wine and drinks and shopping. It's a great women's event that raises a lot of money for Historic Annapolis, and we are the VIP sponsor for that. In addition to that, we sponsor the Summit Schools Purse Bingo. We donate to other purse bingos and women's groups, Moms and Multiples. I'm trying to even think. There's a whole bunch of them out there that we're happy to sponsor, and we do a lot with schools and things. Again, reaching out to moms and women in general.
So one of the things when we first talked about you and what you were trying to accomplish, one of the big things that motivates you is nonprofit work, is being involved in the community, is giving back. And you've always done that, but it's been sort of interesting because I think this also helped you focus some of your involvement because of this new understanding of your brand. So how did that play?
I think I've been a little more strategic in my board selection since I started working with you. I don't even know how many different boards I've served on, and I enjoy board work. I like to think I have a talent for it and that it's a good way for me to help and give back to communities, to share my knowledge and expertise. But recently I did just join the Historic Annapolis board as one of their trustees. And again, it's not necessarily a women's group, right? But obviously a lot of women are very interested in historic preservation. And all of that. And of course, Historic Annapolis was really spearheaded initially by St. Clair Wright and Miss St. Clair Wright, who started the preservation movement in Annapolis.
Sounds very well aligned.
Absolutely. It's funny, I was talking to Robert Clark, and he's the president of Historic Annapolis, and talking about it. And I said, I'm happy to have my brand associated with the Historic Annapolis brand. Mm-hmm. That's a positive for me that my brand is affiliated with theirs.
Absolutely. That's a good point, because I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there, especially, well, not many that can volunteer as many hours as you have, I will say that. But when you're looking and thinking about how to give back to the community, you wouldn't often think about it in the context of your brand. It's oftentimes who's approaching me and asking for a donation. It's reactive as opposed to proactive. So it's interesting that once you had your brand voice and you really internalized it, you could intuitively know which ones were a fit for you and which ones weren't a fit for you.
Right. And I would even say too, if there's something out there that it's an organization that I believe in their mission, I like their cause, but it's not necessarily something that fits with our brand. Sometimes we can find ways to still work it in, because if they're having a golf tournament, for example, we'll sponsor the ladies closest to the pin and the ladies' longest drive. So it's still a tie-in with our brand, but we're able to support a worthwhile cause in the community that's not necessarily perfectly aligned.
So for somebody who would be considering using the brand voice tool, what is the advice that you give them? Oh,
go into it wholeheartedly, right? And even if it doesn't resonate immediately, let it sit and sink in. Because I like what Laura said about putting the inside on the outside, right? I think brand voice is a wonderful way to have people opt in, the right clients, not just people in general, but the right clients will find you and opt in, and they're coming to you to buy versus you trying to go out and find people to sell things to. I think it's much more natural. It's much more authentic. It's easier on everybody. Everybody knows what they're getting from the start.
Well, thank you, Ann. That was really, really helpful. I always love talking to you about your brand voice experience because it was a hard sell in the beginning. It a while, and you actually informed all future brand voices. Every time we sit down with a client, we say, if what we tell you isn't hard, if it seems too easy and you love it right away, we haven't done our job.
Well, I will tell you, I told Patrick, I said, if you came to me and said, Ann, your brand is white male SEC football fans, 45 to 65, man, I would have embraced that. We'd have redecorated all the offices. I mean, there's already half anyway, right? I mean, we wouldn't have had any Georgia stuff in here. But other than that, this office would have been redone in about 2 days. We'd have had some great football themed stuff going out there. I could just see the ad campaigns now. And it would have been a little bit true, but I think it wouldn't have been quite, from a business standpoint, quite as resonant as the brand voice that we have now with the focus on women.
Well, we know you're obsessed with Gators, but yeah. So I think the thing that I would say here for folks listening here is at SBI, we're always constantly looking for new tools that can help small business owners get beyond the standard, be somewhat disruptive, take their businesses and help their businesses thrive. And I think too often small business entrepreneurship becomes a slog that drains the battery versus actually puts things back in. And brand voice is one of the examples of one of those unique tools. When it works, it really, really, really works. And there are a lot of tools out there that I'm not sure enough small business owners are looking at or contemplating. What can I do that isn't just practicing my craft? What do I do around the business, on the business, showcase the business? How do I relate to clients in creative, disruptive ways that showcase me and make my business go a step beyond? So brand voice is a good example of one of those tools.
That was a great summary on that. And I would just reiterate that now is the time for businesses to be evaluating and taking action so that we can come out of the pandemic strong. And brand voice is just one of those tools in the arsenal to help you do just that. So thanks for listening. Thank you to our guest, Ann Alsina from Covington Alsina, and we'll see you on Tuesday.
Thanks, Ann.
Thanks.